Winning Plays is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
The playoffs are here, and the Winning Plays podcast is here to dissect it. And Chris Forsberg of NBC Sports Boston joining us today. We're not waiting until Wednesday. We're not waiting for this.
We're just gonna break down the heat right now.
No.
And then we'll just look bad and we'll say we posted the wrong version if it's the on.
We'll just do two alternate versions. No, we're not waiting 48 hours. We need to get to the meat and potatoes, because to be honest here, if we're spending most of our time breaking down a first round series, we're wasting our time at this point. What this team should be looking at this postseason, which we can get into here. But yeah, this is the Winning Plays podcast brought to you by FanDuel. But so Chris, let's do a final breakdown of the regular season here before we fully turn the page.
I love it. We made it, Rob. We made it. 82 games.
82
it's
games.
A grind.
Did it feel longer than usual this year? What's your feel on how this went?
Interesting. I felt like the end of the year went really fast. We got to the All-Star break or whatever. That's 58 games, and then the last 24 or whatever just was kind of cooking here. And that's the way it usually goes. There's the trade deadline, so much hoopla, but it really, you think back to the 21-5 start, it feels like 3 years ago for me, at least. Having to watch all that Robb Williams basketball was tough. But what I find myself doing in the aftermath of the season is rewinding to, I think it's, you know how much we love pure numbers and stuff like that. So 200 days since Brad and Wick were at the podium lamenting the suspension of Ime Udoka. And I think my big thing going into the year was just how gloomy media day was, how uncertain everything felt, how tenuous everything felt. Here's all these offseason moves to get Brogdon and Gallinari, and then you got the Robb injury news. The Gallinari's going to miss the season. Ime, and we're like, what the hell is going to happen here? And so credit to the Celtics, they figured it out, and it wasn't perfect. They played down too often. They cost themselves the 1 seed, and yet you look up and 57 wins. They're relatively healthy outside of gardening accidents, and you feel pretty good about what comes next. So I'm with you. I don't spend too much time obsessing about Miami or Atlanta, because my whole thing is, all right, are they going to get to that championship stage and get a chance to atone? And that to me is the bigger story than, Spoelstra versus Mazzulla, which we have to obsess about. But you just kind of drill it down. They were one of the better teams in basketball for most of the season. Now it's time to go prove it.
Yeah, it's going to your point about media day. If you said at that point, Celtics are going to finish with the second best record in the regular season in the whole NBA.
Right.
They would have taken that in a heartbeat.
in an instant.
Yeah, Robb's out for the first few months, coach fired or suspended / fired days before training camp. But they put themselves behind, their fast start kind of just tempered those expectations in terms of being they should be the best team in the league this year, and this is an opportunity. So you can see both sides of it, but I'm with you. This, the big picture now, how they're ending the season now, how the fact that they're, I think, as healthy as they've ever been entering the playoffs in maybe 4 or 5 years. Jaylen Brown's garden accidents put to the side here, that's big right now, and so that's something where you look at where they are from a big picture standpoint. They didn't get the one, but you'd almost rather have everything else in place as opposed to getting that 1 seed.
Yeah, I think if you told me before the season that the Celtics would be the second best offense, the second best defense, that they would, essentially play their best basketball against the best competition, everyone would have taken that. And look, he's on your radio station. He's on my network at night. But Felger screaming about how the Celtics underachieved because they didn't get the 1 seed. Whatever. And look, I don't love Joe's answer. I don't love Joe's answer either that, the Bucks had to win 20 in a row to kind of steal it. But it's true, that made it a little bit harder. They played well against bad teams, and the Celtics did not. And we'll see if it bites them. If you want, in 6 weeks, if we're talking about a Game 7 loss at Pfizer Forum, we can sit here and lament it all we want. But for now, I feel pretty good. Every box that you kind of wanted to check along the way probably got checked. Tatum played as an MVP for most of the season. Jaylen Brown was way better than I think most people would have envisioned, and is at least in that all NBA conversation. Robb was great when he was healthy and looked better by the end of the year than he did at the start. Al, again, had his moments, but you feel pretty good about playoff Al. I mean, Marcus is a little bit. Isn't it weird that Marcus is sort of the wild card for me?
Yeah.
Thought he kind of had a roller coaster season, but you got Brogdon, you got White, so you have securities there. And Grant Williams, the most disappointing player of the 2022-23. And that's being unfair to Grant because he was actually really good at the start.
I know.
But like the fact that Grant Williams is your biggest question mark going into the playoffs, like pretty good. Like I think you again, if you had laid this all out for me before the season, probably taking it.
It's funny you just say that. So I was going to bring us 5 questions about the postseason run. And my last question is what you just answered. What is the biggest question mark about these Celtics? It's a question about a question. And so you think it's Grant Williams. I didn't think it makes sense from that standpoint, but I didn't think to as him as a potential option there.
Look, I'm not saying Grant had some rough moments at the end of the year, but I did think Jason Tatum was going to go on the court yesterday and tell him to take off the JT1s that he was wearing during that game because he was embarrassing. We have high expectations for Grant, especially based on what he did in the playoffs last year. And the fact that you have this whole contract situation hovering above it all complicates matters. I don't think he was really good for stretches. The start of the year was great, showed a little bit of new stuff, but obviously as the year wore on, I don't know if he was thinking about it more or what the case is. I would love for him to, maybe we'll get to talk to him this week and just, see where his head's at. And certainly Joe Mazzulla didn't do him any favors by taking him out of the rotation in that instance, and then the whole free throw mess. So I just think Grant's got to get out of his own head. What I would say is the best thing for Grant would be to go back and watch tape of last year and how much he impacted those first 2 guarding Durant and guarding really important to this playoff run. He just can't linger on, and I don't think he does. I mean, I guess it's only human to think about a little bit about what you potentially lost in earnings, and certainly it doesn't look great for him going into the offseason. Being great in the playoffs solves a lot of that. And, so for him, he's just got to look at it as a chance to kind of wipe the slate and get out there. I don't think it's the biggest question because Hauser's been pretty good and you'll have options if you need to. And you really, as long as the core 7 is good, then maybe the 8th and 9th man don't matter all that much. And Blake can play based on what we saw at the end of the year. I think the biggest question is just, do they stay healthy? Does Jalen's thing linger at all here with the hand? Robb stay upright? Al doesn't look 37. That's probably the biggest question mark. But and now I feel bad. I feel like I slandered.
No, but I think as far as the core rotations, I think there's no doubt. He was so integral last year to a lot of those series, and that's the one thing. Okay, you'll stick with an 8-man rotation here, but then it's kind of okay, well, what happens if Grant doesn't have it? Where do you go? Do they have enough left to kind of cover that up? But I'm with you. I think this week Grant just play that, watch those highlight clips of Game 7 against the Bucks. Just keep that in a loop for himself. Be oh yeah, this is what he need to be kind of built up towards. Since they probably shouldn't need him that much against the Heat, but I don't know, against Bam, if Robb gets into foul trouble or gets hurt, that suddenly becomes a pretty big matchup there. But I like that. I like that answer from you. I think that's could, based on the past, could come up just as big now.
Yeah, and you look at again, you just look at the path, and not to link because I don't think it's the biggest storyline of the week, but certainly they're going to need help with Bam. That's a guy who he has the rivalry with from high school. Embiid, you're going to need as many bodies as possible. It'd be really good if you could get good Grant minutes there, and then obviously with Milwaukee. So I just think there's a chance for a lot of what we nitpick about Grant over the course of the season. There's a chance to just kind of make us forget about it and focus on the good and remind us why he deserves, whatever is available this offseason.
Take a quick break now to hear from our sponsor at Winning Place, FanDuel. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official partner of Major League Baseball. And new customers in Massachusetts can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston, and you can finally bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more. The FanDuel app, it's very easy. You can download it right on your phone, and you can pull up everything in a quick, whether you want to bet on the games, on props, everything is within your fingertips within a few seconds. It's very easy to use. So bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and it's super easy to use. Don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. 21 and over and present in Massachusetts. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. And now back to the show. All right, next question. Starting five. We see more small look with, I'm thinking the totality of the playoffs here.
Yep.
So putting first round aside here, do we see more of the Derek White starting five, the small ball starting five with Robb coming off the bench? Or do they lay it all on the table with going back to Robb and Al in the front court for the majority of the playoffs? I assume they're not going to start that way, but I'm curious to see which direction they eventually lean towards more.
Exactly. My guess would be, and this is sort of hedging, but I think they start Derek, and then the amount of double big they play is based on how well it looks during the season. Like the crazy thing is, Al and Robb, the numbers are like outrageous when they're on the court together. Like probably I think the best two-man group for the Celtics. Plus last time I looked, it was like a plus 21 or something like that net rating. Like amazing amount of minutes. Al, Robb, Jalen, Jason, Marcus, terrible.
Yeah.
Like last year's starting five has been atrocious, maybe minus 20 in those minutes, which again, if you take those minutes out and then look at Al and Robb singularly, is probably plus 40. So I don't know. They've got to figure out the right mix, like how to get that double big out there and maximize the minutes. But
Derek White starting
a little bit
for smart. No, I'm kidding.
It does. It gets a little easier in the postseason, right? Like you're going to play both guys 30, whatever the number is, and you're going to patch together the 48. And then there'll be some overlap. And, so I think just Mazzulla has to find the right spots to use it and just ride it when it's working. And if it's not, if that starting group, if that, like you have that last year's lineup on the floor and it sucks again, just be quick to get away from it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're going to lean more small. I think that's like, I agree. Like they're going to, like playing Al and Robb over the course of the game makes plenty of sense based on the opponent, and like the numbers don't lie there. Like that's something you want to lean on. But I think we have enough of the sample size with that starting five this year. That's just like you don't want to go to there unless you have to. Unless you're going down the series, you want to mix it up. But I think your default is, when has this group played their best basketball? It's when Derek White's been on the floor with the starters pretty much, and until further notice, like that's probably the way to roll with. And then I think you potentially get more out of Robb coming off the bench against second units anyway, regardless, since he can, feast a little bit easier against those groups, and while, playing alongside some of the starters in the process. So I think we'll see it. We will definitely see both, but I think when all is said and done, I think we see more of the small ball, just because I think that's the way Joe honestly wants to play the most.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the other thing I would say is you can chuckle when I've pre-written the game that saved the Celtics season, when Derek White didn't play in the fourth quarter in Utah, and Joe remembered that he should play Derek White a whole bunch.
Not a lot of complaints about Joe since that game.
Right?
And
it was as if that game, he kind of like learned some lessons.
Well, it's because the unfortunate part about Joe, and we'll just transition to him, because my next question here is going to be about Joe in terms of, I think just what he looks like in the postseason in strength, or a potential like weakness for this group in like head-to-head coaching matchups. He's obviously clearly a strength for this season on a whole, based on where they are in the standings. But yeah, it is. There were, the admitting mistakes, things like leading in that Utah game. Like it'd be one thing if that was like a one-off. Like no, this had happened a few times, but ever since that game, I feel like he's come close to running Derek White into the ground in a good way. Getting like those 40-minute nights have been up and up and up, even when everyone else is getting more rest. And the Celtics have played by and large very well since then. So there's been plenty to nitpick over the course of the season of Joe. plenty of things to make you worry about what it's going to look like on a big stage, but you wonder now whether everything's kind of fallen into place here in terms of him knowing his blind spots and knowing what to go to when it matters most.
Okay, I'm changing the article. Did the media save the 2022-23 Celtics by badgering Joe into playing Derek White 40-plus minutes and him being like, okay, you jerks wants Derek White, you're going to get Derek White, and we'll be the best team in basketball of the final 13, 14 games of the season. So, no, I agree. I don't – it's not that I feel like Joe is going to be a liability at all. Like, he's proven himself. Like, he's had a really good year, you know? Like, I think we can nitpick the little stuff. He learned – I loved his response yesterday when he said, what did he learn? And he said timeouts, you know, like it was true. He sucked at using timeouts at the start of the year. You know, it's something you got to learn. Dude had never been on the front of the bench before for an NBA season. You just got to learn these things. And yet again, a thing the media was right about. But, you know, like overall, I think he's proven he's willing to put in the work. He's going to put the team in the best position to succeed. He can't be out there impacting like effort level at all times, but he can do like coach type things. I think the biggest question mark, and it'll be accentuated in round one, because if they do get the heat, you're going to have Spoelstra, who's going to junk up the game, very Nick Nurse-like. He's going to throw the zone out there. He's going to force Joe to make quick decisions about personnel and lineups. And how does Joe react? Sometimes maybe a little bit slow in that in the regular season, you know, doesn't always cost you in those moments. He's got to be spot on in those instances, or else, you know, it could tip a game or something here. I don't think it'll cost them a series. It might cost them a game, like a late game decision, something like that. But, you know, I think knowing that too, we'll have Joe just a little. Joe's not going to sleep for the next 128 hours, getting ready for whoever it is and making sure the team's ready. And so they'll be good to go. I'm not overly concerned about it, certainly because if you start looking at the path and Spoelstra, Doc, Budenholzer, 3 championship coaches. So, you know, you at least got to be ready for guys that have been through it. And what do we always say? Like, coaches aren't graded until the postseason. And even Ime last year, like, at least he got a couple rounds before he had to get to Spoelstra. You know, kind of like you could learn. I mean, Steve Nash in round one, and it wasn't really the hardest debut for Ime there. And so let's see what he can do here with Joe but like, are you worried at all about Joe in the playoffs?
It's gone down. I think it's tough against Spoelstra. That's a tough test to begin, but from a personnel standpoint, he just has more options to go to. Yeah. And so I think there's been, you know, a learning curve on some fronts, but I think he's gotten kind of there on a lot of fronts in the last month, to the point, like, when's the last time I saw anyone complain about timeouts with him? Like it's been a while.
Crazy.
So
end of game plays, which he just ran one for the entirety of the season. But like, again, as long as he's sitting on, that's it. Right.
So hopefully, you know, again, I think last time we talked, I'm like, well, he's probably keeping some things in the the cupboard for a while here. So we're going to find out.
We'll find out.
And I think the other good thing for him is, like, as far as the Heat goes, many players I talked to on the team raved about his like game planning in terms of shutting them down from a defensive standpoint last year. And now their offense is even worse.
Yeah.
So if it is Miami, Atlanta is, you know, I think a tougher just matchup and defending wise, but you know, that's just a team that doesn't seem to have the guts in the postseason and make anything interesting.
When you score 140 points against the Hawks every night, it will be an easy series. So no, but I'm with you. I think, and that's a good point too. I think we should probably hammer that home. I'll steal that idea at some point this week. He was Mazzulla. If you go back and watch the tape of that Heat series, Mazzulla's like pretty much jumping from behind the bench onto the floor to call some defensive signals and get everybody ready. So yeah, he was super vital to the success there.
I guess this next question kind of lines up with Joe, but it is a broader team-wide question. I think honestly, maybe for me, one of the biggest questions we have, period, the crunch time 5. The crunch time 5 is, in my mind, just a complete wild card game to game, based on how this
Are you okay with that?
I think it's not ideal, but I'm okay with it from the sense that, like, I couldn't give you the right one right now. Like, I couldn't tell you unless do you have it for us? Do you have the answer?
I don't have the exact 5, but I can tell you this, the one random number that keeps like really jumping out at me is how bad the team, or not bad, but like how just sort of neutral the team has been when Jalen and Malcolm have been together on the court. Like, I think last time I looked, it was a 0 net rating for the season in like, you know, 400 and something minutes together with just those two, or, you know, those two together in any combination. And it doesn't make any sense. Like it should work with Malcolm and the core guys, and yet it just hasn't. And I can remember, I think it was maybe one of your first winning plays of the year, maybe you and Ryan, something like that. And it was like you guys were talking about the crunch time lineup, and it was just why isn't it working with Malcolm? And here we are, 4 or 5 months later, it's still not working with Malcolm. I don't know, but like it's probably their best overall collection of talent.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, I want Malcolm Brogdon on the court in big moments, like his steadiness. I don't know if Smart Brogdon is part of what clunks it up a little bit and the ball handling nature, but yeah, I don't know. As long as Smart, Jalen, Jason are on the court, and like again, I just want Smart for the chaos factor. And maybe there's a night that he's just out of control. And
what about your boy D White though?
Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. So I can't sit here and lobby all season for Derek White to be part of it and then say no.
But you can't play him right now.
You can't play him, Brogdon, and Smart. Like
I agree.
So I
think Smart being a default on the floor at the end of the game, given this season, is a mistake. I think everything, it has to be game flow. And if Smart has it that game, or Smart is like you need him defensively, I get it. But I think we're at a point now where as long as White is shooting with confidence in a game, like he has to be a default option there. And then the choice goes to Smart if you want more defensive and chaos feel, or Brogdon if he has it going offensively and you need that to get going. I think that's, in my mind, that's the biggest decision to make right now. And I mean, it's not the perfect choice because we know White can kind of lose it in an instance. And then, I think Ime and Joe at the beginning of this year kind of stuck to that with getting him like a really quick, pull when he just in games where he was showing any kind of like hesitation. Hopefully he's over that now. But I just think he's been that good where it's like,
the numbers don't lie. You have to have him on the floor. In general, like you have to play Derek White. And I do agree. Sometimes in those situations, I just prefer the highest basketball IQ guys be out there and make the right decisions, take care of the ball. And so go small and probably have some collection of those two guards. And maybe it is a feel thing. And maybe, I don't know if that's ideal. Like I'd much rather know definitively, like this is the 5 they should go with. And yet, this is where it comes, you set it up right. This is where it comes down to Joe. Joe's got to have the right feel for who those guys are and make that decision quick and have no hesitation. And if he does, they'll be successful.
Do you think you're going to see Robb in crunch time at all?
I think there'll be instances where like you just maybe either the opponent's big or you just want, I don't know if you pull Al off the court in that instance, you really want Al out there too, but I can see instances where he's out there and just, for the defensive chaos and maybe that's when Smart isn't out there and you just need another really defensive minded guy and put him as the big, or Al's in foul trouble, which I guess doesn't happen often, but I can see some crunch Robb in there, but it also depends on how he's playing. Like I think he's had games where it's clear, like Robb is spry and got it. And I think you can tell within the first 5 minutes, it's like, oh, it's not going to be a Robb night. He's just like, fumbling the ball a little bit, just, doesn't have it. And so again, it's second best team in the league probably shouldn't be so much of a feel, but if we can notice it, like I feel like Joe should be able to punch up those right buttons.
I think that kind of puts up the degree of difficulty for Joe. Like kind of all season long when you don't, these teams like this good usually have like, oh yeah, we know who we're closing with. Like
right.
That's easy. Like I don't have to think twice about this. And like you think back to the title teams in the Doc era, it's like, yeah, he had a set 4, and then sometimes it would change based on who had it going in a game. But usually it's like Posey was that 5th guy in place of like Perk, or even Rondo if like Eddie House there. But now this team, you have like probably like 3 certainties of Horford. But then after that, now I do think you have like 4, maybe 5 options for those other 2 spots. And that's like kind of uncharted waters, but could be a good thing.
I can't wait. It's going to be a persistent storyline throughout we'll be obsessing about the clothing lineup.
All right. Last question. More big picture here. Postseason impact on Jaylen Brown's future. Do you kind of see it having any type of lingering impact either way? Is there a way you'd want it to go in terms of favoring Ware's future? Or do you feel like this is just like not going to be a real big factor in terms of how this summer plays out?
Interesting. Until you phrased it, at first I was just going to completely dismiss it, but no, you're right. So a couple things. One, I mean, at some point, probably middle of the second round, they'll announce.
Yeah,
for long stretches of last postseason, he was the best, most consistent player. Fair, like, yeah. So I needed validation on that, but so I feel pretty good about it coming off of last year, and yet you always feel a little bit better if he goes out there. If he has a complete stinker of a postseason, yeah, I mean that definitely goes into the calculus about what you're willing to extend to. But I just don't see. And people keep asking me like, is there any chance they don't go full supermax if he's eligible? And I like, no, he already took a discount once.
Yeah,
you just got to be okay with overpaying. And I don't even know if it's overpaying. It's just, you got to be okay paying market rates for superstars, and you don't have a backup plan. So, it's just be okay with paying that money.
Right. That's what it boils down to. It's like, oh yeah, what's the alternative? And if there is no alternative, if the alternative is like finding a trade where you have no leverage, because other teams know that you're not willing to go there and he's not willing to stay for otherwise, then that kind of kills it. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's hard to envision a scenario like that, but it is, I think, big picture wise, like more success. Like Jalen is very team focused, win oriented. It seems like in terms of being a part of his legacy. So that's a situation where they need, the more they take care of there, I think the easier decision it comes if there's any kind of doubt there for him. I like on the Sports of Celtics show with Gasper and Murray, they were talking about like, oh, maybe like if they win one, like that makes it easier for Jalen to like walk away if he wants to. And I'm like, oh, I don't think so. I think if he gets a taste of it, I think that's tougher if you can like put 3 or 4 together and still get paid more than anyone else. It'd be pretty tough to walk away from that.
I think you're always going to be tempted, and maybe that does bring it full circle. They've accomplished all they can. He's got an opportunity out there, but I still think there would be a lot that had to go into that potential decision. And maybe that would be the Celtics just saying, hey, we're not going to give you the full max. Like we gotta with the new rules, we gotta trade cautiously, and then that pushes him towards it. But I don't see that happen. And I think it's more likely than not that either he gets all NBA and it's a easy peasy decision this summer to lock him up regardless of how this plays out, or as I told you, like I'm bracing myself for 14 months of like this
don't
is a lingering story about like, and it's not his fault. Like if he wants to bet on himself, it makes all the sense in the world, and I've always thought that's the way it will tilt. But man, it's going to be obnoxious around here for 14 months or 12 months or whatever the case may be.
Well, we don't have to worry about that for at least another couple months in the meantime. But those are your 5 pressing questions about the Celtics in the playoffs. Look, we didn't talk about any head-to-head matchups or anything, and we covered so much ground here. I'm very proud.
I love it. This podcast
job.
Can stand for the week. I might put this on Celtics Talk.
Have a teaser preview. We'll send to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So NBC Sports Boston's Chris Forsberg. Tell us where you can see you all week long here.
So we have a playoff preview show on Friday night. It is taking the place of Celtics Post Up, so we'll get you ready for. I'm just going to say Celtics Heat because I don't think the Atlanta Hawks are winning that game, but maybe I'll look silly if you're watching this after Tuesday night. And yeah, we'll just be hanging out. Hopefully, at Celtics practice all week. We taped some interviews earlier this week with a couple guys, maybe even Robb Williams. So I don't know when those will all necessarily roll out. Derek White's up there now, but yeah, go check out all that stuff. It's fun.
And you guys have game 1.
We have.
Right? They didn't steal game 1 from you.
Yes, we have game 1, and I believe I should double check that. But
it's ESPN, so it's got to be. It's not ABC.
Yeah,
so it's
we typically have all of round 1 besides the national exclusives when those windows are very limited. It's like the 3:30 Sunday. It's not because Celtics Nets was such a big deal, and we lost I think maybe 1 or 2 games in that stretch. But come hang out. We only get the first round there for pre and post and half and all that. Playoffs, but if you want Mike and Scal and Abby and us people in the studio, I was gonna say us jokesters in the studio because we try to keep it light. Come hang out with us and hopefully we get a nice, as much as I want 7 games for my network, hopefully it's a nice breezy 5-game series.
Pacing will be good. Pacing will be good for everyone here. But all right, well, check them out there. Check out the Wing Plays Pod all week long. We'll have full preview coming up once we know this opponent later this week as well. We'll be hearing from Chris all postseason long, in and out. And make sure you check him out in the Celtics Talk Pod as well. And that'll do it for us. We'll talk to you guys later this week when we figure out who's line ahead in the first round.